Hey, Jessica.
Hi, Angel.
It's so good to see you. We don't get a chance to see each other as much, being working from home. And so I'm excited for us to be here this morning and be able to have a candid conversation about about a professional topic that we're recording to allow teachers to listen in on some of our conversations and the way that we collaborate with each other when we are in the office. So I know we've talked about doing several of these videos, but why don't you share this morning what the topic is for this one? And greetings, teachers. Welcome to our Candid Conversations as you listen in on Jessica and I talk about some things. Jessica, why don't you tell us what the topic and purpose is for today?
Sure. So welcome once again, as Angel already said. And our purpose for our first candid conversation is just to talk to you guys about how to begin to think about structuring balanced literacy across the day in a virtual setting. First of all, we commend you guys. You are totally rocking teaching virtually. Who would have thought we would still be here in almost October of 2020? But yet here we are, and you guys are rocking it out. So as we begin to think about where we are in phase one, knowing that at some point we'll be transitioning into phase two, a big topic has been, how do I get it all in? We only have 40 to 45 minutes for reading, 20 minutes for writing, but we are expected to do balanced literacy and hit all of the components. How? How do we work this miracle? So Angel and I just want to have a candid conversation, just to maybe throw some ideas out there to begin to allow you to think about how to structure this time so that you can get it all in. This is not the perfect solution. However, it's just some things that we have taken away from some of our professional reading, as well as some of our visits in some of your classrooms in the past couple of weeks. So feel free to reach out to us and let us know if this video was helpful for you, because we do want to continue to provide these conversations for you. And if there's a topic that you want to know more about, let us know that as well, so that we can definitely include that in our list of topics for conversations.
Yes. And Jessica, I love that you said this is not a perfect solution. Mm-hmm. Because as we have said many times to each other, as well as in conversations with reading coaches, this is the first time that any of us have ever had to do this.
Exactly.
And, like you and I talk about all the time, when we were in the classroom, we didn't have to do this. So we are learning right along with these rock star teachers that are having to do this for the first time themselves. And so we appreciate, one, you allowing us into your classrooms, teachers, so that we can see and get a feel for what it is that you are doing. And obviously we appreciate the exceptional work that you are doing with students.
Yeah, and if you have a system that you think is working well, reach out and let us know that as well, because maybe we can have you as a special guest on our next one to share with other teachers, because we're all in this together. And that's one thing we're going to have to learn during this time, being okay with learning from each other.
That's right.
I love learning from you guys just as much as you love learning from us. So how about we just learn together,
Yeah, that's right.
Think together.
I love that idea. I love that idea of having teachers and even some reading coaches on as guests.
So don't forget to reach out to us if you're interested now.
That's right.
All right, so let's get
started with because I know that first slide, if you'll go to the instructional time, and you mentioned this, getting it all in across the day. I know I've had several questions from schools and teachers, and I know you have too. Yeah. So I think our greatest challenge is the fact that face-to-face, we were allotted 90 minutes of actually uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted, that's right.
And that's based on the Read to Succeed law. Mm-hmm. So we had those 90 minutes of uninterrupted instructional minutes for ELA when we were face-to-face. And even then we struggled with it all in. Now we have moved to our district e-learning expectation of 45 minutes for reading and then 20 minutes for writing. That's huge. We've almost cut the time in half.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes a challenge. It becomes a challenge. So we definitely have to be creative. As Jessica said, these are some suggestions, but definitely not the end all be all, and not anything that we're saying you have to do. But they are very sound suggestions that you might consider.
Yes, exactly. All right, so let's look at the first one. So Angel and I started thinking about this, and we started thinking about, within a structure of 45 minutes, there's only so much you can do effectively. And so, especially in grades 3 through 5, we really want to be able to have those opportunities to go deep in our shared reading opportunities, our interactive read aloud opportunities, but also still allow time for our students to collaborate and have those collaborative conversations, whether or not they are producing a product to kind of guide that conversation, whether or not they're sharing something in the chat, or whether or not they're just unmuting and giving insight further into a text. So we started thinking about balancing out this 45-minute time into the following pie chart. And this is just a representation of how your time could look possibly, and how you could balance it out. So of course, as you see, which section has the least amount of time? Interactive read aloud. But we're not omitting interactive read aloud because that's still huge. That's an opportunity for students to hear us model fluency and our thinking aloud. So we're still keeping that, but we're devoting more time to that shared reading opportunity and those collaborative conversations. Keeping in mind that throughout every component, every piece of this pie chart, as a teacher, we're still modeling and we're still coaching. All right, so we're still modeling and we're still coaching. So this is just one idea for what it could possibly look like in a 3rd through 5th grade classroom. Anything you want to add to that, Angel?
Well, nothing I want to add, but I do want to mention a question that teachers may have.
Mm-hmm.
And you can speak to this. So if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about the balanced literacy model for Richland 2, some may wonder, well, where is guided reading and where is independent reading? And I know you and I have talked about that, but would you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so and actually that'll come up later in another slide when we talk about how you can look at breaking up your time across the week. But in regards to maybe word work, of course, that can be incorporated with your interactive read aloud and your shared reading. That doesn't necessarily have to be a segmented time within your day or your 45 minutes that you're focusing in on that. So we have to begin to think about ways that we can incorporate that in the text, okay, versus isolating it outside of a text.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, when we get to the later slides, you can see how we are going to incorporate guided reading and small group to help you begin to think about how to get that in outside of this time. So this time would be designated for your synchronous whole group class instruction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I like that you said we have to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to be creative with our time and with getting the structures in within that 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't get too far ahead because I know we'll talk more about that in the slide where we're talking about the week.
Yes.
So let's look at K2, Jessica.
All right.
So the pie chart here for K2, somewhat similar. You'll see some of the same components. You see interactive read aloud, collaborative conversations, and shared reading there. But we have added working with words in this pie chart. And if you look at that again, looking at how the components are distributed, greatest amount of time is spent on that shared reading. We do still want interactive read aloud. That's very important, all grade levels. And then, of course, we also want our babies having those collaborative conversations. We talked about how working with words, it looked like a smaller chunk of time compared to interactive read aloud and collaborative conversations. And Jessica and I had lots of conversation about why we felt that should be the case. And with the working with words, you're still going to be doing that in shared reading. You're still going to be doing that in guided reading. You're still going to do that in particularly with your primary babies. So they're going to get that. That collaborative conversation piece is so vitally important because now we're talking about language development and vocabulary with our students, vocabulary coming into with the interactive read aloud. So that's why the times may look distributed a little differently than what you may have thought they would be distributed, but still the same components. Again, modeling and coaching going on throughout all of those components. Mm-hmm. And again, we will talk more about guided reading, small groups, as well as conferring, actually, when we get to a future slide. Is there anything you want to add to what I've said, Jessica?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
Yeah. So this brings us into our next one. So you might be thinking, and I know some of you so well, first of all, how many minutes am I supposed to spend on the collaborative conversations, interactive read alouds, working with words, and shared reading? Notice we were very intentional and we did not put minutes there. And honestly, we're not going to give you minutes to put there. We want you to begin to try to kind of structure your time and your mind that way, but let it flow naturally. Oftentimes, it's hard to put things into boxes, especially when we think about ELA. So we're not going to say, well, you should only spend 5 minutes for your read aloud and 25 for your shared reading. Your read aloud may take a little longer than 5 minutes on one day, and definitely if there's a teachable moment there in the conversation, students are really doing the thinking that we want them to do, why cut that off? Okay, so that brings us to this point. We have to begin to prioritize our skills. And I know that some of our centers do not do open court, but for those schools that are doing open court, and you do have to consider the green band, we know that there are a lot of phonemic awareness activities that are encompassed within that green band. And it's impossible to get all of that in when we only have a 45-minute block. So you have to then prioritize what's going to be best for my students. Think about the data that you have been collecting over the last couple of weeks. And when I say that, I'm talking about data outside of MAT testing. Think about what you've learned about your students when you have been listening to them read one-on-one. Think if you've already started your quarter assessments, think about those gaps that you see in regards to phonemic skills that your students may be lacking. Then prioritize what you focus on during that green band based off of your student data. It's so important that we look at student data, especially during this time, considering we don't have as much time as we had when we were in brick and mortar. Another point that I want to make is begin to plan across the quarter. And at first I was thinking, actually plan across the year, but I do know that, things are going to change when we do transition into phase 2. So even when you plan across the year, yes, that's great, but I know that sometimes that plan may drastically change just based off whatever phase 2 looks like. So start small and begin to plan across the quarter. When you see that, maybe for the red band, students are expected to make connections, make predictions, and inference. You may not be able to accomplish all of that with that one particular text, but prioritize what's most important for your students that particular week to focus on. And for my upper grade teachers that are watching this, they might be thinking, what is she talking about, green band, red band? Well, that's associated with open court. But the same thing for you guys. Prioritize the skills that are most important. We know that with ELA, our skills cycle around to each other. So once again, think about your class data. If you're doing benchmark assessments, any type of informal assessments, think about what your class needs the most and plan that across the quarter. Anything you want to add to that, Angel?
No, I just want to say one thing, and it's my favorite thing to say when we're talking about prioritizing skills and getting everything in with open core in particular. You
Mhm.
can trim from the parts, but you cannot trim the parts. So you can't trim any of the parts out, but you can trim from the parts. And I think that Jessica, you did a wonderful job of explaining what that looks like.
Mhm. All right. Well, lastly, we want to talk to you guys about alternating structures. Angel, do you want to take
Yes.
the lead on this one?
Yeah, I can start. And then of course, if there's anything that you want to add, you can chime in however you want to share. But with the alternating the structures, go back to that pie chart that we showed you and think about what that looks like on a day-to-day. What does that look like? What does the distribution of the time for those components look like when you're working with a whole group? And there may be a couple of days, well, the alternating here, we're talking about alternating whole group and small group versus guided reading. So you do whole group one day, you're working through those components on that pie chart with the whole group. And then the next day, you're considering those structures and what that looks like with your small guided reading groups. Now, individual is included there because there's an expectation that every day you are doing some conferring one-on-one with your students. So working that time in, and that time is going to be outside of that pie chart, obviously. Maybe when you have other students working asynchronously, then you've got some designated appointment times with particular students where you are conferring with them individually. So that's what the alternating structures suggestion or recommendations looks like and is all about. Now, do you want to add anything to that, Jessica?
I will. So once again, like we're saying, this is not something you are expected to do. This is just one recommendation we have based off some questions we've been getting and some research that we've done, but to help you begin to think about how to actually get to the point where you are meeting with small groups and guided reading groups. So some of you have already kind of structured your schedule so that you are able to get all of this in, especially during your office hours. Some of you are still trying to figure out how to navigate that. So if you were to use this suggestion on what this might look like, let's take our first post-it over here, our notepad over here with whole group. That could possibly be your Monday. So your Monday is when you are going through everything on the pie chart with your group, whole group wise. Tuesday, let's say you meet with two of your groups. So you divided your class into 4 guided reading groups or 4 small groups based off the needs of your class, and you meet with 2 of your groups during that whole group instructional time. Okay. Then you reconvene with your whole group on that Wednesday. Then that Thursday, you meet with the other 2 groups that you have not met with that week. And then that Friday, you reconvene with your whole group. That's just one way to think about it. And some of you might already, your wheels might be turning, and you might see a way where you could still meet with your whole group on the same day that you're working with your small group or guided reading group and still be able to get it all in. That's what we want to hear from you.
Yes.
How can you take this and make it work? And we want to hear that from you so that we can begin to help other teachers who are still trying to figure it out. So, if you are at the place right now where you have already established your procedures, your students know how to join another link for their small group, and you're ready to start exploring something different, definitely give it a try and let us know how it's working for you.
Yeah. And I'm glad, Jessica, that you mentioned, because I want to clarify something that I said. I'm glad that you mentioned that this is just a suggestion. They don't have to do it this way. And I did mention that conferring with your students is an expectation. So I want to clarify, you don't have to do it in this structure. because independent reading is a part of our balanced literacy model, conferring is an expectation. So you are expected to work with those students individually. But as Jessica said, this is just an example of what your schedule may look like. So thank you, Jessica, for stating that, because I did need to clarify that. I was not intending to convey the message that they had to do it this way exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but so that's just basically it. That's some of our thinking as we begin to think about how to get balanced literacy in this virtual setting in phase 1 and phase 2. These are not the perfect solutions, but they definitely could be a starting place for some of you. So we hope,
absolutely.
We hope that you have taken at least one thing away from this video. And don't forget to, if there are some things that you and your teammates are thinking about, feel free to let us know so that we can incorporate them for our next segments. And if you already have it figured out, or you have a plan in place that's working, by all means, let us know too, so that we can invite you in as a special guest to share with others across our districts.
Yes. Well, Jessica, I'm excited about our next conversations. I know we have some ideas about what we may want to talk about. I'm really looking forward to continuing these videos.
Yeah.
And I know you and I can stay on this thing and chat all day long, but I know we both have other conversations and meetings to get going too. So.
Oh, speaking of chat though, guys, don't forget, we've been doing our monthly chat and choose sessions. They're open for all K-5 teachers, not just lead teachers. So on the October newsletter from the elementary team, make sure you check out those dates, and we hope that we can see you there. That's just an opportunity for you to come in, ask us questions, or maybe even collaborate. If you want to know what other schools are doing, that's the perfect opportunity to ask teachers that have joined. So last month we had a so-so turnout, but in October we definitely hope to see more teachers. We do understand that MAP testing was going on, easy CBM was going on, so there was definitely a lot of conflicts, but we hope to see your faces in October in our chat and choose session.
Absolutely. All right, Jessica. Well, I will see you later today.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bye.
Bye, see you later.
All right.